we are going to get started. I had a funny thought. This morning as I was driving in, I was talking with Shannon because we drove in together, and I was having this thought. I was like, you know what? We're doing this and we're recording some of these pieces, and we're not going to like put all of this up online, but there's going to be a ton of it. And I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, wow, it cost us hundreds of dollars to put these classes on. It's going to end up costing us thousands of dollars by the time we edit video and put it up there. And like, so that's what we're doing, okay? This is actually learning for us. It's helping us understand where our weaknesses are, where we can take it, and where all that stuff is. And so I want you to know straight out, and I know, Madeline, you were kind of talking about this yesterday, but this is what we want to do. And so I want to kind of just come out and say that, all righty?
We're your live studio audience.
You know what? You really are. And the cool thing about it is I hope, like, I saw a huge improvement yesterday, okay? Ooh, you guys were jumping and editing and jumping here and there, and I was purposely going to other pages, and you're like, oh, no problem. I just know exactly how to get back to where I need to be. And it was, except you.
Except me. What page were you on?
Not true. She's been doing great.
I think we made great progress yesterday, okay? Kind of started out the day. I'm just going to do a little light recap of what we did, and then I'm going to ask you guys about just some stuff just to kind of get the juices reflowing a little bit, okay? When we first got in, we did a little bit of an orientation of like, okay, what's the general page layout? How do you get back home? What does the chooser do? You know, log outs. We purposely logged ourselves out and then did the login_reset.cfm to get ourselves back in. We then started kind of playing into just like general sales using special line items. So we did a very, very limited scope. When we first started yesterday, we did this. Shopping cart, invoice, special line items. That's it. Selling labor, selling other, selling just super, super simple things, okay? We didn't even do some. Pretty soon you guys got bored and you're like, I want to start adding customers, or I want to start doing quotes, or that kind of thing. And so it was kind of interesting. It's just a natural progression, which is great. It's great, great, great. And then as we got a little further along, we started getting into general inventory. We added Mountain Dew and chips and bottles and computers and all kinds of fun stuff. And we started actually getting inventory. We started selling some stuff out using some barcodes. And it's still on that similar type things. As soon as we started adding inventory, we hit this other side. We said vendors, POs, and then pulling things into this general inventory pool. We also, at the same point, we talked about, I'm just going to switch my tools here real quick. We talked about some tubes and how to record parts and how each of these tubes represents a part, if you will. And then we have incoming through the PO side, and outgoing is your invoicing and quoting on the outside of that bar type format. Okay. One of the next things that we did was we were in here and we just kept playing and playing and playing. We ended up adding services and other items and a whole bunch of different things. So we made a bunch of progress as far as that. We spent most of our time on that bottom section. We didn't talk about locations. We didn't talk about this. We did go into users a ton. We went into users and we were in here and we were constantly changing permissions and doing a bunch of things that way, okay? So anyway, that's kind of the real quick recap, if you will. And Cheryl, I'm going to turn the time over to you. I'm actually going to jump back into the system. And if you want me to, I can even jump to something if you want to. But I want you to kind of say, what did you remember from yesterday, just to kind of get the wheels flowing again, okay?
When I first started doing Adilas, one of the problems that I had was terminology. And having used something like QuickBooks before, or having done accounting before, that was always, oh, wait a minute, you know, and so I had to do the terminology. And again, it's always remembering what the terminology is, because anytime you start something, it's always a new language.
Absolutely.
But I think the thing with the tube and helping me to understand that my tube can either be just a vendor, or it can be an item. That was a great thing that I learned, so that I kind of understand that principle of, if I want everything to fit into the tube, I can either make and say, oh, these are all vendors, or I can say, these are just products or these are just items, and it doesn't matter what vendor goes into.
Okay, so watch this analogy right here. Let's use this bottom two here, okay? It's our example. Normally you have one vendor, and then you sell it out, and you sell, okay? So one vendor is tied to one item, and that's the normal consistency. What you're saying is if you wanted to do like a generic, you could potentially have multiple vendors all feeding into one tube because it's a generic item. Is that what you're talking about?
Right, right. Instead of my tube being bottle specialties, you know, my tube is now Bob's, my tube is now Mullen, my tube is now.
Correct.
So I don't care who gives it to me, I'm sorting it by items instead of by vendors.
Awesome, awesome. And we just kind of started getting into inventory a little bit. One of the neat things, and Shannon's probably going to comment on this as well, we were talking about this on the way in, but one of the things that we did that was probably one of the best things that we did all day yesterday was we did this. I'm just going to up my font size here, but we did some planning on paper, and it made a huge difference. We said, we're going to start with the vendor, and then we're going to go to the category, and then we're going to go to the items. And the items could be multiple levels deep, but this is kind of how we were starting to organize some of our pieces. So what you were talking about, you might have multiple vendors that talk to one category and one item, but all feeding it into that one tube, creating a generic inventory versus a vendor-specific inventory.
Right.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. Very well. Okay. Awesome. Madeline, what kind of comments can we get from you?
Well, you kind of know the direction I was going. I really enjoyed yesterday afternoon because I'm an on-paper planner still.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
so when we set up all those services and the categories, that clicked,
Okay.
and then it seemed really full of speed to go in and build those and make those work.
It was literally
And I
full
all
speed
of a sudden,
ahead.
yeah, all of a sudden I made that connection, and I had the connection with items, but I hadn't really proceeded to that next step of service type things.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, as we did that, the services going in through the tube, everything clicked.
Awesome.
So I think that was an excellent exercise.
We will do that again, okay? And what I'm going to have you guys do is you're going to physically do your own planning, okay? What's my vendor, or even possibly multiple vendors? What are my categories? And then like you're going to pick a subject. So if she picks her herbal business with tinctures and herbs and bottles and stuff like this, she's going to develop a little categorization for this. Madeline, if you want to do your computer services or you want to do whatever, beauty salons, it doesn't make a bit of difference. You plan it out, okay? Boom, boom, boom. Let's see if we can stack this thing, and then we're going to do it. And we're going to actually make and create it, and then we're going to show each other. So I think that's one of our first exercises. We're not going to jump there quite yet, but that's where we're headed. Okay? Awesome. Mark, we wore you out yesterday. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
I don't know. Just, I'm still grasping it as well. You know.
You know what? Treat it like
That's right.
school, okay? You're still kind of in elementary school, and it's totally fine that way.
I got a history of a different system. I'm trying to figure out how it plugs into the new system.
When he was out chatting, it's making sense to him. He just doesn't have the business set background that I do. So it's a come.
That's
We
great.
were talking farms again last night.
That's great. That's great.
And it's vocabulary too. It's trying to fit what you already know into what this is and make the vocabulary work.
Well, and I personally anticipate this is probably the section of the map that I've worked for people who've had incoming bikes and consignments and the whole 10 yards, but I look at that upper end. The upper end terminology is going to make more sense to me, the financial side of things.
Sure.
So this lower end is the piece that I think my head was struggling with the most, making sure that I understood from the vendors, from the business's point of view.
I'm going to show you guys a
Your
small graphic.
terminology is like a totally new world for me.
I don't
You know,
doubt
so
that at all.
When you call in one thing, for years and years and years, it's always been something else.
Okay, so
To me.
can I tell you why we did that a little bit? What happened was if we call it exactly what somebody else calls it, they're expecting it to work exactly like something else works. Well, what happened was we've had to develop this thing over years and years and years. Instead of it being like, here's our product ready, go. It's dynamically been being built. It's literally a cause and effect relationship. We need to track inventory. Cool. We need to do this. Wow. Now we need to do parts. Now we need to do this. Now we need to, oh my goodness, we have this and this. Why don't we put all this together on an invoice? Oh wow, we have sales tax now. Wow, now all of a sudden we can pull payroll reports because guess what? I've got all these little different pieces and cool, we got payroll. How are we going to pay that? Guess we're going to need some checks. Okay, like we did it like this type of thing versus hey, here's our whole granddaddy product and we're going to do it this way. And so what happened was because we didn't have it all built out, we're like, if I call it that, people are going to expect it to do this and this and this, and it didn't at the time. It really didn't. So that's why some of the terminology came about. But it's kind of fun. It's literally been years and years and years, and we've just kind of been pushing it. It was a custom write-up system, and then what we did is we eventually kind of started adding different pieces. And like once you finally get to the map, I clicked onto this little graphic right here, but basically what it does is it kind of shows you some of these different little pieces of the functionality. Mostly yesterday we were in this category right here, invoices coming out, POs coming in, which is kind of called your inventory and sales tracking stuff. Today we're going to be in some of these other little pieces. But like what it is when you get together with the whole map, it kind of makes, this is what Adilas does or where we're kind of headed with it. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. And like if you're like, wow, that's a ton of stuff, if you really started thinking about it, you're like, well, you could totally cut that out. You could totally cut that out. Well, maybe for your industry, but what about for this other industry or whatever? Like, it's very important for certain industries. Like, we started right here in stock units. I haven't even showed you anything in there. And that section is probably one of our biggest sections inside of the entire thing. Okay? I haven't even showed you it. But we have people who they have trailers that come in and vehicles that come in and they're doing outside repairs and internal ticketing. So like they're virtually doing all this transferring of this stuff. They have slush funds, they have payroll, they have, you know, whatever. It's just floor planning and it's just amazing all the different things that this little teeny little piece right down here, and this is actually what exploded the whole thing. That's where we started at. And then eventually we needed to add the parts department. And then we had multiple locations, and we had just the whole thing has been kind of fun. It's been an interesting process. So Mark, I hear you on the vocabulary. Here's one thing that may help you. Okay, this is just a little reading assignment for you. But go to any home page, any page, doesn't matter where you're at, and click on Help. Then there's a little thing that says Adilas Steps to Success, a user guide. If you click on it, there's actually a whole section that has some vocabulary. If you click on it, it'll actually go through here and say, here's what we call it, here's what we call this, here's what a flex grid is. Like if you want more, these links actually go right to another help file that basically says, here's the flex grid, here's what it does. Like you literally have tons and tons of resources at your fingertips. It's just a matter of kind of like, what's a P&L, what's a quick search, what's a this, you know, like there's a bunch of these little pieces. If you click on quick search, boom, you're right into another giant help file that actually explains all of the different pieces about that. There really are a bunch of pieces, but if you expect just to learn it, it's just like any other thing. You can't digest it. But I'll tell you this, I saw yesterday, you guys were cruising. By the end of the day, I was saying something to Cheryl, and Madeline was like, oh, I did that same thing. I'm going to go fix it. So you started. That was the highlights for me yesterday. Okay? That was awesome. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that there is some vocabulary stuff that will kind of help you, and it's done through those steps for success. It's the start of our manual. We've only got about that far done, but this is how much we have planned still to do. There's tons of help files out there. It just hasn't fully been all connected yet.
So the ones that are in black is what you're working on.
Yep.
The ones in blue are.
Yep. So basically, say I wanted to go to enter once, use many. Click. It basically has a cute little graphic that was drawn by my daughter. It basically says you enter the data once, and then as it flows down, it goes past checkpoints. Instead of actually re-entering the data and then moving it to another place, re-entering the data, you start a life cycle or a journey, and then it basically just goes through little miniature checkpoints. Okay. So this one doesn't have a flag yet because the data hasn't reached this particular checkpoint. Okay? These are very, very simple drawings. Some of them are like explaining a one-to-many. Imagine a bar and a person holding hands with other people. Okay, it's a one-to-many. It's some sort of a relationship. If you're looking inside of a database, you might have like a little guy on a ladder storing all these things in little containers. Okay, that's what a database is. Okay, a one-to-many relationship, a bicycle, a car, a bus, or a transport truck. What are the size of the levels and what's it carrying and what's its details? Those are just like little simple drawings. But anyway, web basics. There's a ton of stuff in like how does it work? What happens? How do things play? But anyway, it's just kind of fun. It's called Steps for Success. It is currently under construction. The way you get to it, once again, any page, it doesn't matter where you're at. Say you're on, you hit Help, okay? And then right there's instantly you're into that beginning of a manual type thing. And this will have major work done on it. It's just, we're a small company and we're just trying to get it done as we can get it done. So it's the way it is. Cool. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. I kind of know I jumped off on a little tangent there, but I think it helped. Shannon, what would you say from yesterday?
As we discussed and as Madeline already mentioned, I really enjoyed planning it out on paper as well, and then it was so focused and everyone was just able to move forward so quickly with their assignment, and there were less questions and it was just understandable and it was really relatable and easy to understand at that level, and then it was easy to translate into Adilas.
Awesome. Can I show you, this is kind of fun, okay? What if I showed you, let's talk about tools that we have to work with, okay? What if I start out and I'll just go like this. First tool, your head, okay? If I have just a couple small things going on, I could probably keep it right here. I don't even need to go past that, okay? This is my tool, it's my head, okay? If I need to go beyond that, all of a sudden you start getting multiple things so they're possibly interconnected. Where do you go next?
I go paper, pencil.
Paper and pencil, okay, perfect. Okay, what's next after paper and pencil? These are great tools. Like, I hope you use these all the time, okay? The next thing you're like, man, I need to kind of start storing this or saving it or doing something like this, okay? You have a notebook. That's still kind of considered paper and pencil, but it basically starts binding things together. I think it's great. Let's go like this. Notebook. The next thing I'm going to do is like a word processor, okay? C-E-S-S-O-R? Is that how you spell it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
That's neat.
going to go like this. Okay, so we jumped a little bit. Paper and pencil. Now you're going to start binding it together into a notebook. A word processor allows you to save it, search it, print it, and potentially even start distributing it, okay? So all of a sudden I can now share it instead of, you're kind of taking it to that next level, okay? What does a spreadsheet do that's so cool?
Manipulate.
Compare.
Compare, manipulate. What else does it do? Math functions, multiple tabs, linking one tab to another tab possibly. It does have limitations. It starts organizing things into rows and columns. Like, you're really getting into, okay, wow, we're getting kind of organized here. Spreadsheets, you can start adding graphics and outlines and formulas, and like, spreadsheets are awesome. Okay, like, I highly recommend them. They're awesome. What goes beyond a spreadsheet? Where does it go to that point? Starts going into a database, huh? Like a little homegrown little system, huh? Some sort of little homegrown little database. All of a sudden you have multiple tables, interconnections, you still have functions and formulas. You now can have multiple people playing on a similar piece of the puzzle. It just keeps going and going and going. The next piece after a database is you actually start getting into professionals type stuff. And the reason I said software and IT is if you have software and you just have it on your computer, you're great. It's already pre-programmed. You have forms and buttons and neat little things like this, potential little windows that are popping up. You start getting into this graphical interface. Your IT comes involved is as soon as you say, I want to take what's on my computer and share it with another computer, guess what you need? You need a Mark. Mark, come on in. We need a network, okay? So all of a sudden, you have limitations for how many people are going to do it. Uh-oh, guess what? Cheryl, you're here and you're over here, oh man, now we have to have a VPN, now we have to have a, it gets into the IT level, okay? At some point you break that little level, okay? Where does it go beyond that?
The cloud.
Awesome, we're going to call it the web or the cloud. Perfect, Madeline, that's great. So we have the web or the cloud. Where does it go beyond that?
Who knows? We haven't invented it yet.
Okay, I'm going to say that it goes like this.
Infinity and beyond.
Yeah, to infinity and beyond.
Okay, so what that does is says, imagine if you had this really cool software application that's in the cloud. It's now centrally located. You have multiple people playing off of all these different little things. And what if you could customize this inline? Or what if you could tweak it to your own personal needs? It all gets to settings and functions and what's an API. This is a little bit of an acronym right here. IT stands for Information Technology, okay? That's usually what it stands for. API is an application programming interface. Okay, and that might sound like a technical term, but basically what it is
Adults. Yeah.
you know what? Atlas is right here. We are in Atlas right here, okay? Guess where we're headed? Even more and more and more to this, okay? What it does is it might sound like it's like intimidating, but what we can do is we can allow you to customize whatever you want. Guess what? We have a race. They're a 100-mile race, human, on foot race. They have to do it within 35 hours. And my dad and I were talking on a walk, and he's like, how could we track that data? And I said, oh, piece of cake. What we do is we set up elements of time for each runner. Then we use this little thing, which is a sub-elements of time, where we can do sub-dates and times. We can tie it to each aid station and each leg of the race, so we can physically track them from where they're going to where they're going. This application was not designed for a 100-mile race, but guess what? There's tons of tools, and then you just start mixing and blending, and that's where you start going. So you can do tons of stuff. I had a school teacher that came, and she wanted to track Common Core stuff, okay? And so she brought books and books and books. She's like, oh my goodness, I have all these tabs, and each one has broken into these little individual categories, and I was like, ooh, you know what? We could do that. We could simulate that. I would recommend that you do this. And then we just kind of just did a little consulting, and she walked away going, I'll go do my homework and I'll be back. Because basically what it does is it's just a tool, and where the whole thing is headed is like, what do you need? You may not need all of this. Like right here, like what we were talking about earlier. So for instance, for that race, we would be doing elements of time and a thing called flex grids, and maybe tying it to customers or photos, and that's it. Like the end. But that's all that person needs, and so that's kind of how you can start taking some of these custom pieces and taking it to the next level. I didn't mean to jump into a whole new little realm, but I did want to show you some of these little tools, and they're all good. They all provide pieces. Even right now, we're using word processor to even show some pieces. Okay, so there are lots and lots of things: head, paper, pencil, notebook, word processor, spreadsheet, database, software and IT, and then it starts going from there. And there might even be some things from here that we don't even know. Not yet. Okay, we don't even know. What if I called this? Okay, just for fun. Okay, what would world building be? What's your world? What do you need? Who are your players? You know, what's their relationships? Is there trouble? Are there things they're trying to solve? Is there cause and effects? Is there what's the story behind it? What's happening? Can you build this whole thing? Can you document it? Can you show it? Can you run it over time? I don't know. I dare propose that that's where it's headed. That's where it's headed. Okay. Anyway, I know we've totally digressed, and we were going to come back to an assignment, okay? So let's go ahead and stop right there for a second, and we're going to switch gears and kind of come back into an assignment, okay?